My name is Harry, and I'm from London.
Meghan Markle here.
As I read this article, I've inserted my opinion based on my personal experiences, and it is not intended as professional advice. Please consult with your qualified expert before making any important decision based on this content. When I read these articles, I tend to get emotional with the article that I'm reading, but just make sure, just in case if I forget to remove some stuff or I then cut certain part out, just know everything that I said in this video are just my personal experiences, and I am not qualified to give anyone any advice in the field of architecture or anything else, and I am not a lawyer. This video is just as a form of information, and that's it. Alright, so enjoy the video. Today is September 5th, 2024. It is 3:25 a.m. There's really not much going on Twitter regarding Harry and Meghan, unless I missed some stuff. But this tweet here pretty much sums up this one is kind of funny, but let me pause it. This tweet sort of sums up pretty much what I've seen going on Twitter. So there's this here. Underneath the chronic obsession over Prince Harry is the fact that they need him. Admit it. We all know you want Harry back to destroy him and take his independence away. How demented and sad one must be to want Harry to abandon his wife and kids. Not happening. Okay, so this pretty much sort of sums up what's going on Twitter, on social media about the UK and Prince Harry. It has me just responded to this saying the GIF was kind of funny. So this was just to let you know this is what's going on. But what I really want to focus on, there are some tweets I want to go over. These were from yesterday. I sort of pushed them further down, but there's the Grenfell Fire article I want to read. By now you guys should have already read it because I've shared it on my community board the moment that I saw it, and I said I didn't read it yet, but I want to go over it. When I first came across about the Grenfell Fire, obviously it's to Meghan regarding the cookbook, and I learned about it, and I believe I did a video on PYTE that spoke about it. I'm not sure if I read the article, but I know I went in full detail giving my I will not say I'm an expert on it because I do not have an architecture license, but I study architecture, and I sort of point out certain things that I felt what might be some of the issues. Like for instance, party walls are walls that separate units. It has to be fire rated. There's different ways of doing. You could put concrete blocks, you could put, there's different drywall with different fire rating, and there's different construction method to prevent fire from crossing over from one unit to the other. And each wall could have different fire rating types and things like that. So I spoke about many things like sprinkler, especially on a high rise. There should be sprinkler if, for instance, they don't have fire escape. And I think I spoke about one of the jobs that I was doing for a firm that I was working for, and I believe it was 5 stories and they had fire escape. For some reason now, safety don't take precedent than how will I say that, design and beauty, this kind of thing. Aesthetic, that's the word, aesthetic. So when I was working on that particular project, I think the architect wanted to remove the fire escape because it did not fit to his sort of look that he was looking for. So he substituted the fire escape for some interior how do you call this, stairs that people could use and things like that. But anyway, that's not the point here. It's just that I was giving examples and what might happen and what some of the issues that might be if high-rise don't have certain things. This can be done. I forgot everything that I said, but I know I brought some key issues. So what I want to do, I want to read the article. And I want to see how close I was based on some of the things that I thought about. So let's go to the link. Do I have it open? I don't think I do. There are other articles that I want to read. Okay, so that's the Grenfell thing here. New Grenfell Tower fire that killed 72 was result of decades of institutional failings, damning final report finds. Okay, so let's read the article. I don't know. Oh, what is that? Let's see here. Let's listen to that.
Do you have any regret of previous Conservative government's policies of deregulation and whether that may have led to this building being less safe than it should be?
I don't accept that. And what I would point to is the action that we took since the tragedy to do two things. One, to identify those buildings most at risk and to provide the funding to ensure that things like dangerous cladding can be removed with the 4.5 billion Building Safety Fund. And secondly, to strengthen the regulation through several acts of Parliament, namely the Fire Safety Act and Building Safety Act, to ensure that we act on the recommendations of the inquiry in phase one of the inquiry, but also to make sure that it doesn't happen again, as I said.
You say you don't accept that, but there will, in all likelihood, be criticism today of ministers, probably from your era of Conservative government. Will you accept that criticism?
We'll look very carefully at what the report says and where mistakes were made. Of course, we will look at that and make a judgment as to what the inquiry has found. Of course we will. I think the most important thing for the survivors and those who passed away and the families of those people is that we all work together to make sure that this never happens again.
And the thing that crossed my mind is that when it comes, different industries, let's say architects, civil engineers, or you name it, different respected field. Usually when something happened to one, it's good or bad. It doesn't matter, good or bad. It's good for each of those respected fields learn from what, let's say, somewhere in America, let's say fire, something happened. I think in Chicago there was a major fire in the 1800s. There was one in New York regarding the something district. Oh my God, I can't think of the names. Where they do clothes and things like that. So pretty much when something happened to one someplace else, if you are aware of it, is to learn from it. Whether it's let's say it's a negative thing that happened, learn from it. How can you prevent your part of the world from going through it? If it's a positive, learn from it. How can you improve on it? There's always room for improvement. So many of these developers or people who wants to be landlord or whatever, they always trying to cut corners to save money. I understand you need to save money, but safety always comes first. There's a lot of new buildings that are being built over my area. From the time that I moved to the area that I live in to how it is now, it's a completely different story. Completely different look. It's not the same anymore. At one point, I got lost from walking when my kids were younger. and strollers. I used to walk around with them, and as they get bigger, you know, they go to school. I don't have the time to walk around with them and things like that. One day I decided to walk around. I completely got lost because the way it used to be is not the same anymore. And one thing I used to do, because I'm into architecture and things like that, I used to take pictures of the construction, how they being built. They so freaking expensive, but the way they build their structures are cheap materials. And I said, there's no way I'll buy any of these buildings. Those townhouses, they look very nice. Very, very nice. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to buy them. They're so close together. And then the materials that they use, the reason I know what material they use, because when they were building it, I was taking pictures. I saw what they use. But anyway, so let me go into the article. Do I have it open? Let's click on it here. Okay. Devastating Grenfell Tower fire was result of decades of institutional failings, damning final report finds. Okay, all 72 deaths, let's pause. All 72 deaths were avoidable as cladding manufacturers engaged in systematic dishonesty and successive government failed to act on warnings, report finds. Okay, I see there's a lot of videos. I don't know if it talks about it. Okay, the Grenfell Tower fire that claimed the lives of 72 residents was the result of decades of failures by governments and the construction industry, a damning final report into the disaster has found. I have to look for that video that I talk about it. I think on the thumbnails I have the Grenfell Tower on it, so I have to look for it. If I find it, I'll put the link in the description. Okay, 18 children were among those killed in the 2017 blaze that the 24-story black in flames while scores were trapped inside. The tower in Kensington, West London had been coated in flammable materials. Okay, I knew that was probably one of those because of the systemic dishonesty of firms who made and sold the cladding and insulation. Okay, I need to look at what I said back then to see if some of the things that I suspected were some what they mentioned here. Okay, let's read that again. The tower in Kensington, West London had been coated in flammable materials because of the systemic dishonesty of firms who made and sold the cladding and insulation, inquiry chair Sir Martin Moore Big said on Wednesday. The excruciating report concluded that all 72 deaths were avoidable and condemned companies for the deliberate and sustained manipulation of fire safety testing. Owners of the tower, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, were also criticized, as was the tower's tenant management organization. At the end of the day, this is why many architects, for instance, many architects don't like to do the structure of a building. We learn. When you go to school, you have to learn about structure, even though architects tends to be more about design, the aesthetic, the look of a building. Many architects refuse to do the structural drawings for their own buildings. Do you know why? Because if it fails, something happened, you always go to the skeleton, that's the structure, the skeleton of the building. And who designed it, what materials they use, how they design it to make it stand up. Okay? So architects always hire structural engineers to do their structure for them, and then they review it to see how it interferes with their design, the aesthetic of the building, the beauty of the building. Because most architects tend to go for the looks, the how nice the building look and things like that. Okay, so they always hire a structural engineer to do the structure of the, like a painting, I will say. All right, so if something happened, they don't blame the architect. That I'm fully aware, because in school I learned about that. But you have to learn structure. Why? Because as you do your design, you have to review. When you have different sets of eyes looking at something, because structural engineer could make mistakes too. You could point out something that the engineer didn't see, and then you could make him look at it again to see if what you saw is, did he see it, did he check it, was it intentional, or things like that. So the victims, who they should blame is as far as I'm reading so far, is the architect and the structure. Well, the building did not fall, it's just it burns. So whoever chose the materials to put in the building is the one at fault, because if they use cheap materials to build the building, then again, sometimes developers, okay, this is a different set of group here. Developers and architects are sometimes, there could be one, there are architects who could be developers, but the owner of the building could try to cut corners. When the architects suggested this is the type of material you should use, did the developer use that material that the architect suggests? And then again, in the US, I don't know about the UK, there are inspectors. Every steps that you do the structure, you do the foundation, you have to call the inspector to come and look. Did the foundation that you drew, that the building department approved, is it what's on the site? So they have inspectors to come and inspect to see if your drawing matches what you built. So if this is exactly what you built, then you go to the next step. You could start building up, do the structure. And then before you put all the sheathing around your structure, your frame, okay, you have to call another inspector. Come and look at the frame. Is what you do on your structural drawings is what's on the site? If it is, you go to the next step. As you build, okay, as you go along with your building department, you have to call building department to come and check. All right, you say, okay, I've done this step or this stage of the structure. Okay, please come and check so I could go to the next phase. And then you have electrical engineer who do the drawings for you or something. This sometimes architects do that as well, where they're gonna put lighting and all of that. But again, due to problems, you hire a person who is specialized on it. And then a different set of eyes between the architect and the electrical engineer. You work hand in hand. 2 different sets of eyes is better than 1 set. You go back and forth. Is this what you wanted? Yes, I want this. This is what you should do. This, you know, what you should put here. This is too weak. You should do that or whatever. Okay, you work hand in hand. All right, you don't compete. You work hand in hand. At the end of the day, you want a building that is structurally sound, that is safe for the tenants in there. So as you build, you coordinate. All right, you have the how do you call this, the construction company. All right, you're working with the engineer, the architect. You work hand in hand, and then once everything is done, you call the building department, come and check. Do the UK have that? Do they do that? So at the end of the day, all of them, okay, all of them are at fault. They can pinpoint one finger to the other and say, this is your fault, this is your fault. If there is a building department in the UK who, as the building is being built and the building department is checking, okay, checking on the builders, are you doing what's on the drawing? Is it matching with reality? Because before they give you the approval, you sit. Usually I used to do that. You go to the building department, you sit with the examiner, that's what they call them. You sit with them and they go over the drawing with you. They literally sit down and go over the drawing with you, as if you were in school. Okay, they look at it and said, okay, is this what's that? You know, how is this gonna? They ask question back and forth. If it doesn't up to standard, up to code, all right, they send it back to the architect or the engineer, the whatever, who's ever the examiner has issues within the drawing, they send it back. So there's always different set of eyes that look at a drawing before it is being built. Even after they approve the drawing, they're still checking on you, because they know people cut corners. They still check on you to make sure what you're building is what they approve, because nobody wants to be at fault. So where is, in the UK, where are all those different hats as the building was being built? Okay? Even if a building was already there, all right? If you're doing a different, let's say you're renovating the your building, your house, or something like that. Because I remember there was a family house we were, that was for an engineer I was working for, and this person wanted to remodel the house, and I think she wanted the attic to turn into a bedroom. And remember, different section, different areas have different code. There's different height you could go. You cannot pass certain height. All right. So the as we were trying to work things out, we worked tirelessly. It was me and the client who was working hand in hand, and then I will do the drawing and then give it to the architect, because I'm not licensed. I have to translate what the client is saying to the architect. You know, it was a small project. It wasn't a big project. He got the job and he said, okay, you could take over this job and do this. And then I talk with the client. As I do things, I talk with the architect. He will tell me, this cannot be done, this can be done, da 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 da. All right. We worked tirelessly with the client. And at the end of the day, we were able to get the exact headroom. Typically 10 feet. Okay. Is it 10? 10 is a bit extra, but to be able to stand up is 8 feet. But if you go higher, that's better. But since it was an attic, I think it was 8 feet. We were, I don't remember the height, between 8 and 10. Okay, we were able to do that. And at the end of the day, and we spent so much time, and the architect was now losing money because I was spending too much time fixing and redo things and things like that. The client came and said, oh, like as if that was her idea. And I just sit back and look at her like, what the hell? Or I cannot, this is your house. Yes, it's your house, but we have to follow code. We have to follow laws. We cannot just give you whatever you want and say, this is what you're gonna build. Because if we don't follow the code, the law, what in the book, your house cannot be done. So at the end of the day, why did I bring this? It's just that there are rules and regulation you have to follow. So where are all these people as the building was being built? I don't know if it was a brand new building or it was a existing. I don't know how long it was there, but where are all those people? Because at the end of the day, those people are dead, and they were collecting money. I don't know. I think it's a group, a collective of people who is to be blamed. All right, let's see here. Where was I? Okay. 18 children were among those killed in the 2017 blaze that the 24-story black in flames while scores were trapped inside. The tower in Kensington, West London had been coated in flammable materials because of the systematic dishonesty of firms who made and sold the cladding and insulation. These are the things that I brought up. Inquiry Chair Sir Martin Moore's Big said on Wednesday. The excruciating report concluded that all 72 deaths were avoidable and condemned companies for the deliberate and sustained manipulation of fire safety testing. If I knew the law in the UK, I would say it's not just that. Okay, who were checking on the builders? Are there local code enforcers that check on the building as it was being built? Where are those code enforcers? Because a building in the US cannot just go up like this. As they are framing, like I was saying, every step of the way as you go from foundation until the last thing is being put there before they give you how do they call it? C of O. What is it? Occupation. Oh my God. C of O. What does it stand for? Certification of occupancy. Yes. After everything is said and done, they give you a seal of approval. What is it? Certification of occupancy, meaning that you. Let's look it up. Okay. C of O. C of O means and building code. Alright. Okay, a certification of occupancy is a document that verifies that a building is safe to occupy and complies with local building codes and ordinances. A CO is required for new buildings and for existing buildings when there are changes to the type of occupancy, egress, or use. Okay, so it gives you before the building owner can get tenants in. That I'm talking in terms of the US, pretty much in New York, because my experience is in New York. This is a very tough place to get the C of O because there's so many rules and regulation. Okay, but before you could get occupancy or tenant into the building, you have to get the certification of occupancy. That pretty much tells you comply with everything, the building is up to code, whatever drawings you gave the building department is exactly what is that was built, and then you could get your tenant in. So all of this in the UK, who are all these people? Who are they? Do they have these people with different hats? This is where all the blames to be. As much as the builders, the owners trying to cut corners, where are all the code enforcers, if there are any in the UK? Where are they? So it's a group of people who should be checking on each other. At the end of the day, with what this report, what I'm reading, well, it's not the report I'm reading, but it's just the summarization of the report. Where are all these people as the building was being built, as the frame was being put? Who came and checked on the builders? Did you do what the drawing said? Before you even put your sheetrocks, did they come and check? The electrician, okay? Did the code enforcer come and check the electrician? Did they follow the rules where the proper things were done? So who are these? This is where the problem is for me. This is why I wanted to read this. And I knew that was part of the problem. If the fire could spread so quickly like that on a building like that. Because in the US, as your building is taller, there are more fire ratings that needs to be implemented. The separation between tenant. If a fire go in one apartment, it doesn't spread to the next one. So where are sprinklers? Were there sprinklers? Even if there's so many questions. There's so many questions to be asked here. The tenants, the people who lost their loved one, this is where they should go to. As much as the builders is at fault, where are the code enforcers? Who were there to check on the builders? This is where the problem is. Who were the code enforcers? At one point, I wanted to do that. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to go in this. There's so many things I see here that are at fault. But at the end of the day, based on what I'm reading, I'm going for not only the builders, not only the developers, but at the end of the day is the code enforcers who checked on the builders. Whether did they, I don't know, I don't want to say they took money on the table to avoid certain things thinking everything will be fine. But who were checking on the builders? how do they call them? Inspectors. That's it. The inspectors. Who were the inspectors for each step of the way as the building was going up? This is where the people should look into. The inspectors. Who were inspecting the builders? Okay, so did I read this? The excruciating report concluded that all 72 deaths were avoidable and condemned companies for the deliberate and sustained manipulation of fire safety testing. This sounds all good, but where are the inspectors? Weren't there any inspectors who should be checking on the builders? Alright, so that's that. Owners of the tower, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, were also criticized, as was the tower's tenant management organization, TMO. Families and survivors lashed out at the long delay to hold anyone to account, as the Crown Prosecution Service warned that any criminal charges are unlikely to be brought until the end of 2026. So if I was the tenant, the people who lose their loved ones, go after the inspectors. After the inspectors who were checking on the builders, because every if you look at Trump, for instance, where people were paying millions for his apartment, condos and whatever, but he was using cheap materials. Go look into Trump things, Trump Towers, the things that he was doing, cut corners, even in numbers, square footage. He was giving huge numbers when reality is not even that. The materials that he was using were cheap, and he just go by his word, you know, this is the best of the best or whatever. So many of these people's developers, you know, they want big bucks, and then they don't want to spend that much. The owners at fault, but then again, it's the inspectors. This is where the people should go. I don't know the rules. I do not know the rules. If it was me, and this happened, and this is what the report says, knowing what I know, when things are being built, I'll go for the inspectors. Why the inspectors did not see the builders built with cheap materials? Did they follow what was on the plan, on the drawing? Did they put proper fire rating for each unit? Alright, go look at, I have to look, if I find that video, if I remember what video I said that regarding the Grenfell, okay, without any report, I did say these were probably some of the things that were happening, because if the fire were able to spread that quickly, it had to do with materials, pretty much. Alright, so that's that. Alright, oh, there's more. Oh, I thought I was done. Okay, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer pledged the government will write to all companies involved in the failures as the first step to stopping them being awarded government contracts. I don't know. This sounds good on paper. Again, the inspectors. Look at this. I'm looking at this image here. It has to do the materials. Who were inspecting the builders? Who were inspecting them? Were they following code? Yes, a lot of people is at fault, but the inspectors, they should have seen what was going on as the builders were building things. This, oh my God, for a tall building like this, for it to go and flame like that, nah. It's the materials that they use. Yes, the builders, but where are the inspectors who should have checked on the builders? I'm not even... Should I blame the owner? Yes and no. But the builders should know. They have to follow code. Okay, let's see here. Key findings of the 1700 pages report include those living in Grenfell were badly failed by authorities and the construction industry through calculating dishonesty and greed. I agree with that. Government as far back as Tony Blair's in 1999 were warned about the safety risks of fires and high-rise blocks. Okay, they were warned. But what are the code? This is the problem here. What are the codes in the UK? Did the builders cut corners? And where are the inspectors to make sure the builders were following the code? Okay? So that's that. Successive government under David Cameron and Theresa May received numerous warnings about the dangers of cladding materials between 2012 and 2017 but failed to take appropriate action. But these are freaking politicians. What do they know? Okay, let me look at this in the UK. Does the UK have a building department? Because if I'm not a lawyer, I cannot tell a lawyer what to do. If I'm not an electrician, I cannot tell an electrician what to do. So, does the UK has a building department? Okay, let's see what they have here. Okay, so they do. Yes, the UK has several regulatory bodies and building control teams that are responsible for building regulation. This is where the problem is. This is where the problem is. Okay, local authorities, building control, there's the abbreviation, a group of professionals that work across local authorities in England and Wales to ensure compliance with building regulation. Okay, LABC team provide feedbacks on plans and conduct site inspection. See, I'm not that far. So the UK have that. They have that. So this is where the problem is. With the building authorities. Were they inspecting the builders as the thing was going on? Okay, approved inspection. There it is. This is everything that I was just saying. Approved inspectors, private individuals who can also monitor compliance with building regulation. Planning inspectorate, a national level body that deals with planning. Pretty much it's not that far from the US. Residents panel, a regulatory body. Industry competence committee, a regulatory body. Building advisory committee, a regulatory body. So I don't see how a politician will be involved here based on what I just read here. Where is it here? Successive government under David Cameron and Theresa May received numerous warnings about the dangers of cladding materials between 2012 and 2017 but failed to take appropriate action because that's not their job. This is whose job it is. The building department's job. The code enforcers. The architects who know ins and outs about buildings. They the one who should write the code. I don't know. How do they make it into the law? How do they? Because I don't see politicians make laws for building. Yes and no. Yes and no. Let me go back. To enforce, okay? Politicians can enforce codes of the building department. Maybe that's where they want them to do. I don't know. To make sure they enforce it and it's part of the law. Okay. Industry competent committee. All right. Building advisory committee, a regulatory body. A building safety act, there's that. 2023 introduced new legal procedures that require approval inspectors to become registered building control approvers. But they didn't have that before. Non-compliance with building regulation can result in a number of consequences, including fines, penalties, legal action, remedial works, invalidate insurance claim, and reputation damage. But Building Safety Act, this one got me here. Introduce new legal procedures that require approved inspectors to become registered building control approvers. This is where, like I was saying, as the building is being built, from foundation up to the C of O, every step of the construction, there are inspectors that come to inspect the buildings as you are as the building is being built. They didn't have that? Okay. How will I inspectors? The UK have building inspectors. Maybe that's what I should say. All right, I'm done with this. Let's ask Google different. Does the UK has building inspectors? Probably yes. Okay. Yes, the UK has building inspectors who are now referred to as registered building but how long ago? Okay, inspectors. The Building Safety Act 2022 created the role of RBI, which involve assessing competencies to register for certain building types and classes. Okay. The other thing here now that I want, there's more to it. You guys could Google everything that I'm typing here to look more into it. But the other thing that comes to mind as I read this, okay, there are 2 building registered of building inspectors, one for England and one for Wales. Search the registered building inspectors in England. Okay. How long, since when did they have building? That's it. Since when the UK has building inspectors. Okay, since when did they start having that? Okay, building inspectors become RBI after 6 April 20. Did they just have that? So as buildings were being built, they never check on them? When did building regulations start in the UK? Let's see here. Okay, 1965. Background, the first set of national building standards were introduced in the Building Regulation 1965. These were a set of prescriptive standards that had to be followed. The Building Act 1984 brought fundamental changes to the building regulation regime. What? Am I reading? I could be wrong. Please do not take anything that I'm saying here. As I'm doing this video, I'm asking myself questions. So I don't know how true or if I'm even asking the proper question. What I wanted to know, as I was saying, as the building is being built, there are inspectors in every step and every stage of the building process. There are inspectors in New York. At least I know in New York for a fact because I work in that before. I don't do that anymore, but I work in that before. And every step of the way, there are inspectors that come to inspect every step of the way. They even regulate the rebars that you put on the drawing to make sure this is what you have in the foundation. Because these help the concrete to stick together, to hold firm and all of that. Do they have these? Even the framing of the foundation, you have to come. There have to be an inspector to come and inspect it to see, did you do it correctly in accordance to what the building department had approved. Okay, after the 6th April 2024, if inspectors are not registered building inspectors, it will be a criminal offense to work as a building inspector. That does not respond to what I want to know. When did the UK start having building inspector? Maybe that's the question. When did the UK started having building inspectors? Let's add to it, to inspect building constructions. Okay, the history of building irregulation and building control. That's not what inspectors. In 1984, Act gave the Secretary of State powers to create building regulations, but in so doing to have regard in particular. No, I want inspectors, the people that goes in the field to check on the construction. When did the UK start having building inspectors? Let's remove some of this. Maybe it was too long. Now I'm having the same building regulation in the UK. Alright, regulation apply across England, Wales, made under building control body. I don't know, maybe my answer isn't one of these, but inspectors. When the UK started having, yeah, that's the question. What building inspectors in the UK? Okay, and this role you will inspect construction site. Okay, so this is the part that I'm talking about. Check that work is following building regulation. Okay, this is the thing that I'm talking about. Make sure that work is following project plans. That's the thing that I was saying. Measure and sample building materials to check their quality. All right, so they have that, but when did they start having it? Maybe it's in here. Let me see here. Let me pause and look for it. It doesn't say much. It doesn't say much. So I'm going back. I grab something here. When did the UK? Okay, let's see here. Is that the same thing that I highlight? Building site inspectors. Maybe that's different. Okay. 1965, so they went back. So when did the Grenfell, okay, the UK began having building inspectors in 1965 when the first building regulation, you know what crossed my mind? Because the US, you know what, let me not go there. Okay, the UK began having building inspectors in 1965 when the first building regulation were introduced, which allow local authorities to carry out inspections. The Building Act 1984 made changes to the building regulation regime, and in 1985 the National House Building Council became the first private sector building control body to be licensed as a approved inspector. Okay, so who did the inspection for the Grenfell? Now that's the next question. Maybe I could help some of the people, the victims. Let me pause. Okay, so this is what I type here. Who was the building site inspectors for the Grenfell Tower? Okay, so that's the question. Are they gonna give it? Let's see here. Fire safety inspectors Exova were involved in the Grenfell Tower fire investigation. Nah, that's not what I'm looking for. The inspectors as the building was being built, okay, and were blamed for leaving the building in a dangerous condition after the refurbishment. The inquiry found that Exova prepared a drafted fire safety strategy that was never completed. Was this building renovated? The Grenfell Tower inquiry was led by retired Judge Sir Martin Moore Bake and included architect, okay, so these are the key players here, and included architect Toria and Stephen and housing expert Ali Akbar. The inquiry found that many parties were responsible for the fire building. Studio E, the architect, which was criticized for cavalier attitude toward fire safety regulation. Ryden, the principal contractor, okay, which rely on previous experience rather than technical analysis. Oh my God. Hurley, the cladding subcontractor, which did not adequately address fire safety concern. Okay. I believe this is coming from the report, but where are the inspectors who would have seen all of these? This is the problem. Where are the inspectors? This is why I said, who were the inspectors? As much as all of these were cutting corners, where are the inspectors who made sure these people were following the rules? Okay? Hurley, the cladding subcontractor, which did not adequately address fire safety, condemned before they even put the damn thing up. The building department should have known these already. And then when they do they put the framing, the drywalls, who came to inspect that? Okay, government. The government was also blamed for the disaster. Right, local council leaders were also blamed for the disaster. Fire service, the fire service was also blamed for the disaster. The fire service is okay, and New York, again, I'm going based on New York, okay? Please do not, even right now in New York, things have changed since the last time I worked on any project, okay? So nobody, please, as you listen, this is my disclaimer. As you listen to some of the things that I'm saying, please do not take them as fact, but I'm just going based when, let's say years ago, I'm not that old, but years ago when I was working for architect. All right, even for fire, let's say you're putting sprinklers, you're putting different things, they have to have a fire department to come and inspect it. In New York, they have to have a fire department to come and inspect these things. This is why I said every department, have different experts to come and check. These were the blame. As far as I'm concerned, they could blame politician, they could blame the electrician. Yes, they are at fault because they were the one who put it. But at the end of the day, who were checking on them? Who were checking on those contractors? Who were checking on them? Okay, this is where the blame is. Who were checking on each of these people? Contractors, subcontractors, electrician, who were checking on them before they gave the C of O? What did I say? Something of occupancy. Certification of occupancy. Before they give you the certificate of occupancy, all of these, okay, all different hats, electrician, fire, architect, subcontractors, contractors, who were checking on them at the end of the day is I'm blaming the inspectors. Okay, yes, the architect, maybe the architect too, because he's supposed to check on the architect supposed to check on the contractors that were doing what the architect wanted. Okay, these are level of things. The architect supposed to check on the contractors and subcontractors to make sure what the drawing that the architect drawn is exactly what the contractor was doing. So this is the fault as here. And then who's checking on the architect? The inspectors. All right, inspectors check on the architect, the architects check on the contractors, the contractor check on subcontractors, because sometimes contractors hire subcontractors for smaller details of things. All right, this is the level of things, but at the end of the day, it's the inspectors and the architect. All right, and whoever did the design for anything else. All right, the designers, the how do you call this, the structural engineer, the electrician, yes and no, the electrician, the fire department, these are the top, okay, the top hat. All right, people wants to say, oh, I'm an architect, I'm this. There's a lot of responsibilities. There are a lot of responsibilities for each of these things. This is why many of these things require a lot of schoolings. 5 years, and then you have to take a test to make sure what you learned, what they taught you in school really, goes into your skull and you understand it and you could implement it in the real world. And then people have to check on you. It's not just about the name. There's a lot of responsibilities. All right, I think I went too far with this. I knew I was going to get rather up in this. All right, so I stop here. I'm back to the article. Fire safety testing was manipulated. Again, who was checking on this? Inspectors. Test data misrepresented and the market misled by companies such as Acronic and insulation firms Kingspan and Celorex, the report claim. Okay, I'm not gonna blame the companies who make their insulation or whatever. It's who bought it. The company make this type of insulation. Does it fit to your design? Is it fire rated enough for what you're trying to do? I'm not blaming the insulation firm here at all, because he does or she does her product, you buy it and you implement it in the building. That's not his fault. All right, so that's where I'm taking that one. Okay, emergency accommodation plans were inconsistent with families crammed into one room and residents left sleeping in cars or on the grass. Okay, so that's probably after the fire. Or is it during when the building was being occupied? I'm a little bit confused here. Emergency, okay, that's probably after the fire. So let me leave that alone, because as you renting a house, they ask you how many occupant is gonna be. If there are 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, there's different number of people that can stay within a unit. This is why when you're renting, let's say, a hall to do an event, all right, they count how many people that can be in the room depending on the square footage. So all of this architects should know. They usually put the number of occupancy within a room. So I don't know if this is what they're saying here, so I'm gonna leave that alone. All right. The response of the government and RBKC was muddled, slow, and indecisive and piecemeal, with little done to cater to people from diverse backgrounds, such as providing halal food for Muslim observation. Wait a second. What is that? Does this have to do with the how the fire became, or is it afterward when the people lost their home? So I'm confused with this. I don't know what this has to do with food. That's a different topic for me here. All right. There had been persistent indifference to fire safety at Grenfell Tower with no finalized evacuation plan. All right. So this one is a bit off to me. The responsive of the government and RBKC was muddled, slow, and decisive and piecemeal, with little done to cater to people from diverse backgrounds, such as providing halal food for Muslims observing Ramadan. What was the... Now this made me wonder, what was this building was used for? Okay, I went back to it, but I'm still confused. So there had been a persistent indifference to fire safety at Grenfell Tower with no finalized evacuation plan. So all of this should have been done before the building was constructed. I'm thinking, as I read this, I'm thinking of egress. All right. So for instance, in a tall building, they have to be at least, depend how the square footage of the building, the distance. I don't remember the numbers in New York, but there's a number of distance between staircases, and the staircase has to be fire rated. All right, like when you go to a building in New York, you're gonna see it's surrounded with concrete blocks. All right, why? Because it's fire rated, so fire cannot come through it, and the doors are, very heavy. All right, self-closing doors and things like that. So this is fire rated. So the distance between one exit to the next, so that way, when let's say you in the middle, your apartment is between both, you could choose any of them to go down. Okay, so there have to be a distance between each of the exits. Typically, all right, depend on the distance, but for a small building, you need two exits that will take you from up all the way up to the outside. So there has to be two exits at least, okay, depend on the square footage. All right, when the blaze broke out just before 1 a.m. on 14 June 2017, residents were told to stay put in their flats in accordance with a fire brigade plan until it was too late. Oh my God. So the thing was not fire rated. Wow. It begins with a faulty fridge, but became the worst structural fire. That's the thing here. Structural fire in Britain since the bliss, with survivor groups saying that those responsible have blood in their hands. All of the victims of the disaster whose bodies were destroyed by the fire were dead or unconscious by the time the flames reached them. Oh my God. That's with the partition. So it spread from one unit to the next. This is why each unit needs to be fire rated. The wall that separates each unit needs to be fire rated. Typically, the best material for that is concrete blocks. Okay, concrete blocks or bricks that typically fire cannot pass through it. It will get hot, don't get me wrong, but the fire will not penetrate through it. So even with drywall, there's different ratings for those drywalls, depending on what's cheaper for you, for the builder. So what's the fire rated between two units? I think it's 2 hours or something. In New York, let me see here. Okay, so it's saying here, in New York City, the code requirement for fire-rated walls separating dwelling units is a minimum, okay? The minimum, that's the least you could do, but I think it's 2 hours. But the maximum. I'll look for the maximum later. The is a minimum of 1 hour fire resistance rating according to New York City Building Code, meaning walls, this is the meaning of it, meaning walls dividing different tenants, okay? Let's say I live in one apartment and you live to the next, okay? The wall between mine and yours, the minimum should be 1 hour. So while the fire is 1 unit, it gives you at least an hour to get the hell out of there. All right, that's the minimum. All right, or before it spread to the next, that's what I mean. Okay, meaning wall divided different tenant spaces must be constructed to withstand fire for at least 1 hour. This is typically determined by testing according to ASTM E119 or UL 263 standards. Key points about New York City fire rated wall between units. All right, there's more to it. This is just the bullet point. Minimum rating 1 hour fire resistance rating, testing standard. Okay, what is the maximum? Let's say here, what is the maximum? Okay, I think it's 2 hours maximum. Let's see, maybe I put it on the wrong place. Okay, according to New York City, okay, it just give you the minimum. Let me look. Well, as long they give you the minimum, but I think as the building get taller, this is probably for maybe 4 or 5 families or something. But if it's a high rise, it's much more, I believe. All right, so you guys could look it up more. I was just curious. Okay, and Britain's, okay, let's look for Britain. Okay, what is the code requirement in the UK for fire rated wall? Let's see here. They don't have it. Oh my god, they don't put it. So the UK don't have to reinvent the wheels. They don't have to fire. Let's say there's a fire in New York and there's a fire in the UK. It will do the same damage. It depends on how you build your thing. They don't need to reinvent the freaking wheels. They could just look at the most extensive code that there are in any part of the world. Could be, I don't know, let's say Swedish or New York City. New York City will most likely be the most, either New York or Chicago. Because this is where there's a lot of people, the cities and stuff like that. They, for safety purposes, their codes tend to be very strict. So look at the most strictest code that there are around the world. It doesn't even have to be anywhere in the US. I use the US because this is where I am. Okay, and then implement it in your own. See what works for you. They don't need to reinvent it. Fire is fire. It will burn the same way I will burn any other places. Safety should be #1 priorities anywhere around the world. And this is why I think in one of my videos I was talking about, there's one of my coworkers who came from Philippines. And I believe in the Philippines, he was an architect. This is why they don't accept. It's not like they minimize your expertise or anything like that. Is due to the codes that they have, and it's not the same in your country. So they want to make sure you understand the quality of their standard before you start implementing, you start working here. So they this guy, very handsome too, by the way, I believe he was an architect in his country, but he had to do I believe I don't know what the requirement if you're already an architect someplace else, but you don't have it here. I still think you have to do the experience, and I think you still have to take the test. The test is very important. But anyway, that's a different story. So yeah, that's that. It begins with a faulty fridge, but became the worst structural fire in Britain since the Blaze, with survivors group saying that those responsible have blood in their hand. All of the victims of the disaster whose bodies were destroyed by fire were dead or unconscious by the time the flame reached them, the inquiry found. And again, this has to do with the partition walls between units. Fire rated. Oh my goodness, look at the building here. Right, Sir Keir said the 7-volume, oh shit, this thing moved. where is it? Okay. Serkier said the 7-volume report identifies substantial and widespread failing, and the government will carefully consider its recommendation to ensure that such tragedy cannot occur again. As much as politicians should get involved, pretty much this is the job for the building department and code enforcers. And then for the politician to make sure there's laws that put in place if the people don't follow the code. All right. Theresa May, who was prime minister at the time of the disaster, said national and local government regulators and the industry must all acknowledge that. That's what I was saying. She's right. Must all acknowledge their part in the history and series of events that led to this. She's 100% right. I agree with her. Like I was saying, the people with different hats, they check on each other's. Inspectors check on the builders, architects check on their builders, and so forth, so on. She's right. All right. The inquiry found that by 2016, the government was well aware of the risk of using combustible cladding panels and insulation, particularly in high-rise building, but failed to act on what it knew. Okay, that has to do with the building inspectors again. What are the codes for each of those things? Okay, more than 800 people were left homeless by the fire, with RBKC's leadership wholly inadequate to deal with the scale of the tragedy, leaving many to feel abandoned and helpless. And this is where Meghan came with the cookbook to help them to have something to eat, and then they cook, what is it, twice a week. Okay, and when Meghan came and said, how come not 7 days? Because of funding, and then there comes the cookbook.
There is a cookbook, but it's also the story of a West London community who gathered together in a kitchen and discovered the healing power of sharing food.
She asked me, how many days do you offer this service? And I said 2 days a week. And her straight question was, why not 7 days, Zahira? And I said, funding. So she goes, we can do a cookbook.
I mean, the UK... But anyway, let's continue. Families who had lost all their belongings were made to wait days to be allocated emergency accommodation in hotels, with little consideration to groups with particular needs, with one pregnant woman forced to sleep on the floor. Where was the, how do you call this? Where was the royal family? Isn't what they there for? They get millions to help people and needs like that? Okay, so that's for the UK. That's just my how do you call this, my advice here, my opinion, not advice, opinion. Okay, the second part of the inquiry, which began in November 2022, heard from a number of survivors who recall absolute chaos and confusion everywhere, with the scene compared to a horror film or akin to a war zone. As I'm reading this, the thing that came to mind with high rise like this, they have to have fire thing when there's a smoke, like smoke detectors and all of that. Okay, so many little things, small smoke detectors, and but in the hallway there has to be those things, how do they call them? It still has to do with the fire department. This is where the fire department comes and checked to see if you implement those things. So was that alarm came up for people to get the hell out of there before it spread a little bit more. Okay, one witness, Karim Masilhi, sorry if I pronounce your name wrong, said he had expected to see people in authority with high visibility jacket, but saw no one, with little information available from the council and the immediate aftermath. I guess, I'm assuming this is a poor area, so they don't give a shit. That's the first thing that came to mind. Many survivors and local residents slept in their cars, while others waited for hours for buses that had been told would take them to a rest center, but instead they were made to walk during the early hours to centers that had spontaneously opened nearby. Wow. Where are those millions from the royal family going? Where are they going? This is where they should have step in. The recycle system. This is where they should have stepped in. Oh my Lord. Okay, one resident described feeling like cattle just coming through, with interviews lacking in sensitivity, and several survivors left distressed after being rehoused in high-rise rooms. RBKC Chief Executive Nicholas Holgate, who acted as goal commander for the council response, had no clear plan and was unduly concerned for the council reputation. Oh my God. They worry about their reputation instead of dealing with what's at hand. These people are freaking delusional. Oh my God. He's worrying about reputation when the problem is right in front of him where he should. I'm sorry, this is not laughing matter, but my God. This is the same issues the royal family have. All of them, they worry about reputation when reality is right in front of them. They don't know how to deal with it. Oh my Lord. The inquiry found Mr. Holgate has previously come under criticism for failing to hand over command to a London-wide group with more expertise until 2 days after the fatal fire. I don't know what to say about that. A toxic relationship characterized by distrust, dislike personnel, antagonism, and anger. Maybe racism was playing here. Waited until people die. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm talking on top of my head here. Was found to have existed between the resident and the TMO since 2011, with those living in the tower viewing management as an uncaring and bullying overlord. It was found that the MTO had failed to disclose to the local council the outcome of an independent and highly critical report on fire safety in 2013, and no fire strategy had been finalized for the tower despite a consultant recommending one in 2009. The London Fire Brigade was found to have failed to provide suitable training to their control operators on handling the magnitude of calls causing confusion at the scene. The problem with this here was that it in the middle of the night that happened. Maybe there were not enough fire people on duty. That's what it was. Because I think from the beginning of this article, the thing started like around 1 a.m. So people were probably asleep. So that's probably another cause of why a lot of people died. And if the fire department did not respond fast enough, there were not enough people or firemen on duties that day, or that night I should say. As I'm reading this, people who live in high-rise near those areas or buildings that were built around that same time as the Grenfell Tower should ask for a checked up to have them inspect the building again, because if something like that happened, so they could point out. That's what I will do with anyone who live around this area or whose buildings were built around the same time as the Grenfell. Okay, it doesn't have to be the same year. It could be a year before or a year after, or even you could go 2 or 3 years before or after. Let's say 5. 5 years before, 5 years after. Okay, have inspectors come and inspect the buildings. If you're living in one, say, come inspect this building, because if something like that happened in my building, we know who to blame. All this could be checked up and improvement could be made. Fire safety, the alarm, they could implement them. Every building must have these. When smoke start happening, it senses it and then start doing the alarm. At least this part should be put, and then check the dividers, the wall, the partition between units. These, if I were anybody who live in the UK and high rise, recommend that. Insist they come and inspect it. If they don't have it, they don't need to remove what they have here. They could add to it. Or, I don't know, I think there's different paint that resist. Let me look before I start saying. I think there are paint that could help resist fires. Let me make sure. So this is what I'm saying here. Yes, there are paints that can resist fire, including fire retardant paint, intumescent paint, and cementitious paint. All right, so they don't need to destroy what they have already. They could add to it to make it more safer. This is what I will ask. one person cannot do this, okay? This is my recommendation as a non-professional, based on what I'm reading, based on that article. This is what I will suggest anyone who live on a high-rise that was built before, let's say, I'm going 5 years before or 5 years after the Grenfell, around that same time. A group of people need to come together and ask for inspectors to come and inspect those buildings. I don't care if you care for your life, money needs to be spent for all of this. Okay? Depend on what's on in the code and what is actually there as you live in that house or in the building right now. Okay? It should match or at least improve on what they have. If, for instance, the partition between units are not up to code, to fire standard, like I just look here, I type here in Google. I knew there was, but I wanted to make sure, okay, because I'm putting a video out there. Paint that are fire resistant. I even put it backward, whatever. Okay, or paint that, my goodness, what the hell did I type? There. Okay, but anyway, this is my answer. Is there anyway? Okay, paint that is fire resistant. If, for instance, your partition wall between your unit and your next tenant is not fire resistant enough or is not up to code, at least 1 hour. New York City says 1 hour. I'm going by that. Okay, they could use paint, certain type of paint that is not fire, that will prevent the fire from passing by. Remember, nothing is 100% proof. Okay, so what it will do, it will give you enough time. This is the thing here. It will give you enough time to get the hell out of the house. Okay, and from spreading to the next. This is what this is about. Nothing is 100% fire safe or that cannot be destroyed. Nothing is 100%. But it gives you enough time to get the hell out of there and be safe. At the end of the day, your health is number one. This is why all of these things, those codes, are there for your health and safety. And this is why when Harry and Meghan are in New York, now, based on what happened with the chase, because this never happened before in New York, now since it happened, now the police department says for the health and safety of people around, because New York City have a lot of people walking around minding their business, doing things, because of the health and safety of people, they will provide Harry and Meghan protection, security, so they don't have that chase again, so they learn from it. So for the people in the UK who live in high rise, come as a group. If it's just you, please, your voice is like a dot. But if you come as a group, you demand it, okay? All that millions that's going to the royal family, this is where William should come into play. I want to be the shiny coat of armor to save the day. Demand that there is inspection for the existing buildings, and then for them to provide the upgrade for those buildings. If it's paint, if it's alarm, if it's all of these minor things that can be done that will save people's lives. Okay, William, I have a work for you. You want to be loved and admired? This is one for you, for the health of safety of the Brit, because you just got a pay raise. So there, use that. All right. Hey, for safety, whatever. Okay, let's continue back here. It had failed to realize its shortcoming during the fatal Lakanal House fire in Camberwell in 2009 and suffered more chronic lack of effective management and leadership combined with an undue emphasis on process. Inquiry Chair Sir Martin and two other panel members found that unscrupulous manufacturers had engaged in deliberate and sustained strategies to manipulate testing process, misrepresenting data, and misled market. Okay. I think I get what they're saying here. So it's like how do they call this, bait and switch type of things? Not really bait and switch. Yeah, kind of. So they said their materials is one particular type based on the rule of law or code, but they didn't do it that way. But then again, it come with inspection. Who came and inspect them? Before things go out to the public, there needs to be inspection. Who are these inspectors for all of these different level of offices? There's so many micro little offices that check on each other. This is, I don't know what it is, but this is what I find. Yes, the manufacturer might manipulate, but who check on them before they put their product out? You can just say this is what I am, and then there's no check and to see if you are who you say you are. This kind of thing. That's where I leave that alone. Okay, how many more? I'm going on. It might be 2-part. Okay, I'm almost done. Okay, this is gonna be 2 videos. Okay, because I'm past an hour. This included companies such as Kingspan, which provided insulation, had not withdrawn their product from the market despite disastrous tests in 2007 and 2008, and their own concern about its fire performance. Is the number the fire that they said they well, let me leave it as that. If there's a problem, they need to fix it, so I'm gonna leave that as that. The building products company has already apologized for the process and conduct shortcomings identified during the inquiry. Setting out 58 recommendations, Sir Martin concluded that the construction industry had become too complex and fragmented. The construction company. This is what happened when you have your bases is covered. That part of recycle system. This part is coming more into the industry because they have their buddies. Are they checking on each other to make sure they're up to standard, or they just turning a blind eye? That's probably what's going on here in the UK with the construction company, the recycle system, because typically what I've seen so far in the recycle system of the government with the royal family and the tabloid, okay, they watch each other's back. Now this is another micro recycle system in the UK. So who's checking who and who turn a blind eye on each other? So this is another thing. That recycle system needs to stop in the UK because it's not beneficial to anybody. Yes, those people are making money, but at the end of the day, they do use many of those buildings that you don't know when disaster is gonna strike. Are you gonna be in one of those buildings you turn a blind eye on? That's what I mean by that. Okay. And suggested a single regulator should be put in place to be responsible for the regulation of construction products, testing, and certification. They didn't have that in the UK. All this stuff that I'm talking about, I'm thinking the UK already had these things. So that's why I didn't find who was the inspector of whatever. Oh my God. Again, like I said, they don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just look at different departments in the US. You could create your own. I mean, you guys, the royal family love to copy what Harry's doing, so might as well copy safety issues. Oh my God. In response, the group Grenfell United said, this marks the conclusion of a painful 6 years listening to the evidence of the death of 54 adults and 18 children and our loved ones, neighbors, and friends. It is a significant chapter in the journey to truth, justice, and change, but justice has not been delivered. Are there gonna be any monetary thing that these people who involved, they know they were doing the wrong thing? Okay, like this building right there. I'm looking at this image. Okay, they should be inspected. This is what I was saying. Buildings that built 5 years before or 5 years after, okay, make them come and inspect it. Are they up to code? Are their fire alarm or the partition walls, these minor things, are they up to code? Are they fire rated? If they're not, like I just looked, there's paint, fire resistant paint they could put between tenant walls on both sides if it's sheetrock that they use. Okay, they don't need to destroy it. They could add to it to make it much safer, give you enough time to get to safety. And then fire alarm in the hallway, and smoke detectors in each apartment. All of these, before they give you the C of O in the US, you need to have all of that. And then moving forward, every year you're supposed to change your batteries and those smoke detectors and fire alarm in each of the units. These are smaller commercial ones, but the ones for buildings to be put out there, this is where the big guys come. The fire department come to check to make sure it's up to code. And then there needs to be, what is that, the spray, how do they call this, fire extinguisher. Yes, fire extinguisher in every hallways. If I go outside in my hallway, there's one in every level. Okay, my building is not that huge, so one enough is good for each level. On the other side of the building, there's one in every level. Okay, and then they come and inspect it. If you haven't used it yet, fire department comes. I don't know if it's every year or every other, whatever. They usually put the date when they come in and inspect it to make sure it's up to code and it's working. So if there's an emergency, because nobody knows when there's an emergency, that it will work. So all of these are minor things that this building, okay, if it's still standing, that this building can do. The people in there should come together and request that they do each of these inspection in every unit. Because even this guy, where he's standing here, his building, they need to come and inspect it. Is it up to code? Okay, I'm looking at this brick wall here, and the door, which is fire resistant. Okay, this is probably the exit here. Is the wall, the staircase from this level, if it still goes up or down, is fire resistant enough. What material did they use? Typically they use bricks or concrete blocks, or they could use cement, whichever. All these are fire resistant. The fire will not penetrate through. It will get hot, but it will not penetrate through to burn you down. Okay, all of these are up to code. So this building where this guy is, and that building over there, and I'm looking here from the distance here between those two columns, okay, needs to be inspected. Are they up to code? If it happened here, guess what? It could easily happen over there. This is a minor safety that can be done. Just looking at this building here with what I was suggesting. Did I read this? Okay, the inquiry report revealed that whenever there is a clash between corporate interests and public safety, government have done everything they can to avoid their responsibility to keep people safe. The system isn't broken. It was built this way. This is what I'm saying. The recycle system, and this guy was worrying about his reputation instead of safety. Oh my Lord. Okay, in May, the Metropolitan Police said their investigators need until the end of 2025 to finalize their own investigation, and prosecutors will then need a year to decide whether charges can be brought. Again, inspectors. Okay, this is the top hat here. Inspectors, then architects, then construction companies, and then subconstructors. All right, because the top hat is inspectors. They should have seen the materials that was being used was wrong. And then the next one is the architect or engineers. Bereaved and survivors have described that wait, which could stretch to a decade after the fire, as unbearable. Oh my God, I thought I was done. Okay, so this is the last paragraph. Publication of the report comes just over a week after a major fire in East London at a block that had been undergoing work to have cladding removed as a result of what happened at Grenfell. Okay, so I guess they were doing some work here. Although nobody died in the blaze, this is what people want. Nobody died. First of all, no fire is the number one, and then nobody died. In the blaze and the Rainham, the length of time taken to address flammable cladding prompted fierce criticism, including from Grenfell United, which said it shows the painfully slow progress of remediation across the country and a lack of urgency for building safety as a whole. Oh my God, they didn't have some of these? As just hours after Wednesday's report was published, a fire broke out in a high-rise block in Catford, South London. Again, as I read this article and looking at this picture with the failure of Grenfell, a lot of building needs to be investigated, improvement needs to be made, fire resistant, you know, all of this. There are ways that they could improve it. All right, so I read the article. Oh my God, an hour and 28 minutes. I'm gonna divide this video into two. Are there any comments? All right, let me leave. Oh, there's none. Okay, so that's that. There are other things I wanna check. Let me see. U.S. politics. That would be different video. I'm gonna leave this as that. All right, so this will be one video. So please take a moment to subscribe, like, and share. If you want to support this channel, there's a PayPal link and a Cash App link in the description. You could donate. Those who have donated, thank you. And yeah, you could read the article yourself. I just put it here, so when I'm after I finish edit the video, I could put it in the description. You could read it yourself, because I took an hour and I stop in between, put my opinion here and there, so you could read it yourself. Okay, so that is it. Thank you for watching.
It is a great privilege to be with all of you today.
You know, we ask for forgiveness and please come back.
As you saw me find the love and happiness that I'd hoped for all my life. You are all in this together, and if I may speak personally, we are all in this together, because asking for help was one of the best decisions that I ever made. You will be continually amazed how life changes for the better.